All right, so I've got a sufficient amount of wine poured, so I think this ought to work.
Welcome to the Chiro Business Mojo podcast, where we deconstruct the methods, marketing, and mindset of successful business people and chiropractors from around the world. And now your host, Dr. Richard Day. Yes, that is correct. I am Dr. Richard Day. Thank you, Mini-Me, for that wonderful introduction. And this is the Chiro Business Mojo podcast. I'm pretty excited today about this next guest. This was an interview I did recently. This person started her own travel company, and she is just really killing it. She's blowing it out of the water. And you may be saying, well, wait a second. She's not a chiropractor. What could she offer me? Turns out there's plenty. Success looks like success, whether you're an athlete, business owner, I don't care. Her name is Jackie Waechter, and I think you're going to really enjoy this. So without further ado, let's meet Jackie.
We're talking today to Jackie Waechter. Jackie is a successful business owner and entrepreneur. She's been in the romance travel industry for 12 years. In 2003, she founded her own destination travel service, Blissful Honeymoons and Destination Weddings, operating in 11 states with 22 employees. She's recognized in the travel industry as a leading destination wedding and honeymoon expert and has been published in travel industry magazines, including Destination Weddings, I Do, and KC Weddings. Jackie appears weekly on KCTV5's in Kansas City, Better Kansas City show for the Better Destinations segment with travel tips, tricks, and advice. Jackie, welcome to the show, and can you fill in any gaps, anything I may have missed?
Wow, that was quite an introduction, and I didn't realize I'd done all that. Fantastic.
Well, good. Well, welcome to the show. This is the show where we share with our listeners, Mojo Nation, business tips, tricks, things they've learned, lessons sometimes the hard way from entrepreneurs and business people who have been successful in business. And you're not a chiropractor, obviously. Our audience is chiropractors. But what I've found is that there are a lot of parallels. Success in business is success in business. And it just translates to whatever particular service or product folks are selling. So I'm going to come at it from that angle. And I wanted to ask you, what got you started in the travel industry?
Well, I was a little bit of a floundering soul at the time and had been working outside the home and wanted to be a stay-home mom and was looking for a solution to that problem and ran across some information and thought, well, hey, I'll just be a travel agent and work from home. So that is how it all began, and I'm completely self-taught.
Wow. Now, you started initially with another group, right?
That's right. I actually started as a franchise owner with another company, and I did that for 9 years. And then once my contract was up, I then renamed myself, rebranded myself, doing the same thing, but just went out on my own with the full intention initially of it just being me. And, you know, luck and blessing would have it that now I'm up to 22 agents across the United States. So it kind of, yeah. Yeah.
That's impressive.
Well, it's fun.
Well, a couple of things. Without the help of a mentor or even were you given a system under the other company or were you sort of, here's the framework, now go out and make this happen?
Yeah, kind of. Here's the framework. Go out and make this happen. It was very much a baptism by fire. I did have a guy come out that was from home office that I'm not really sure was so much a travel agent as he was a marketing person, and came with me to my first ever bridal show. And I still to this day cannot believe anybody would have trusted me to book their honeymoon at that stage of the game, but somehow we managed to do it. But outside of that, I have to tell you, it was just a lot. They pointed me in the right direction, like here's where you can get help and support, and here's who we use as our wholesalers. And from that point, it really was, hey, you know what? Dive in, swim, see if you can. You're either going to sink or you're going to swim, so you might as well just go for it.
Well, it's interesting you mentioned something, the word trust. And in our business, because of a doctor-patient relationship, we're always working to establish trust, and that typically comes over time. How is it in your industry? What are some of the things that you did initially and continue to do to establish trust in both your brand and your abilities as a company?
Absolutely. A huge part of it is being educated. It's constantly learning. And that is one thing I cannot stress enough. You never know enough. There is always someone else out there that knows more, that sells more, that does more. And it's those kind of people that you want to make your friends, not your enemies. And that's what I've continued to do is I always am taking classes. I'm always learning. I didn't just fall back on taking a couple classes on Mexico or Tahiti or my first ever FAM trip, which is a familiarization trip where we go and we learn about the destination. I continue to take that yearly. I continue to invest in my knowledge of the industry so that I'm always on the cutting edge and I always know what's the next big thing and I can see the trends before they happen. And I think that has been absolutely key to my success and then building trust with my clients, because if they come to me and they ask me a question, I can say, yes, I've been there. I've done that. I've walked at that resort. I've eaten their food. I've had their cocktails. I can tell you what this wedding venue looks like. That makes me invaluable. And that makes what I do worth their time and energy.
Absolutely. Those are great points. Mojo Nation, one of the things that she mentioned is in establishing trust and rapport is really knowing a whole lot and having cutting-edge information, and that's exactly the same in our industry. Part of it as well that I think I'm getting from you, Jackie, is kind of being able to say, I've been there before, I know what to expect, and in our business, what that is that's a clinical experience. We can tell our patients, hey, we've seen this before, we know what to expect, and here's what your road ahead looks like. And I would agree with you 100%. That's really big in establishing trust and building.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I can absolutely see it in your industry as well, because as a consumer of chiropractic care, there's nothing better than to someone to go in and say, you know what, I've had and dealt with this same exact problem before, and I dealt with it this way. There's nothing that gives you more trust than someone saying, I know where you want to go, I know where you've been, and I know how to do that.
Let me ask you, where do you get your leads? I can tell you in our business, the best lead, the best patient for us is a referred patient, someone who has already come in and had our services, were pleased with the result, and then told a family or a friend. Is that the same thing you find, or is it something different?
Well, that is huge, because I know that 99.9% of the time when they're a referral, they're going to use me because their friends or their family or a trusted one said, hey, we went on this trip. Jackie did an amazing job. It was seamless. It was, we got the best deal, whatever it was. They're going to come to me. And they're going to trust me straight out of the gates because someone has told them. Now, the other way I get leads is another way I mentioned was bridal shows. And I've gotten really good at doing those. And those are when, and actually, believe it or not, we have a lot of chiropractors at bridal shows.
Really?
Yes. Every time I do a bridal show, there's a chiropractor at the bridal show. And it's very much a place where you're one-on-one. I get to meet brides for, I get to give my elevator speech. And I think having an elevator speech about what you do is super key to any person in the service industry. You've got to have that elevator speech where you can talk about who you are, what you do in about 10 to 15 seconds or less. So a bridal show gives me an opportunity to go face to face with my potential clients. And I've got 10 to 15 seconds to convince them that I'm better than anybody else they're going to meet that day. So I do. I get a lot of those from one-on-one. I also do very targeted marketing. And when I say that, I sell travel. I can sell any kind of travel. But what I've chosen to do is find a niche, and to find a niche market in honeymoons and destination weddings. And that is where I spend all of my marketing dollars. Now, I still will get referrals for other stuff, but that's where I find I have my biggest success, and I get the biggest bang for my buck when I really find a niche. And so that's another way I get leads, is just being hyper-focused on what I'm really good at.
That makes absolute sense. So let me play devil's advocate for a moment for some of our listeners who might think, well, wait a minute. Am I limiting myself and limiting my customers / patients and my income by doing that? And my experience is is no, you actually, like you said, you get really good at one thing and actually excel. And that's one of the ways in which you differentiate yourself from your competition. Instead of trying to please everyone, be all things to all people, you're really keyed on one specific little target area. And as a result, you end up growing much more than you would if you were trying to please everybody.
Absolutely. It has been amazing that I have it. If I would have cast a wide net with no real direction, I don't know that I would have the business I have today. But being hyper-focused, because see, what happens is I get them for their honeymoon and their destination wedding. Then they're like, hey, do you know someone that does first anniversary trips? Well, yes, I do. Her name is Jackie. And, with my destination wedding clients, the same thing. They'll say, hey, we're wanting to do a family vacation. Do you know someone that does that? Hey, yes, as a matter of fact, I do. Me. And I can imagine that in your industry, if you hyper-focus on something and really focus, they're probably, if they really enjoyed your services, they're going to come back and say, hey, by the way, do you also do this? And that is how you grow it.
How much of your business is repeat business? I'll tell you, in our industry, we'll see, a person, if we do a good job, very much like if you go to the dentist and you do a great job, that person becomes your dentist. That's where you go when you need dental work done. And so we try to do a fantastic job each and every time so that continues to happen, in our business. How much of your business is repeat business? And what do you think? Is it qualities you have as a person? Is it the service you provide? What is it that is bringing them back as opposed to going to a competitor?
Yeah, I do have repeat business. Now, keep in mind, a lot of the vacations I plan are once-in-a-lifetime vacations. So they'll come back to me, and I'm going to give you a real good guesstimate here of probably 75% of the people that used me for their first trip will use me for their second trip. The hugest part of mine is the referral, because if someone's getting married, they know somebody else getting married. It just is, that's just the way things go. Now, what differentiates me is I take a very personal approach. I'm not an order taker. I'm a consultant. I don't just take an order like, well, we heard about this resort. Well, yeah, let me book that for you. I'm like, tell me about what your honeymoon looks like. Tell me what you see. What do you envision? What's your budget? What do you want? And I take all that and I give them what are my best ideas and my best recommendations, because their best friend may have loved, this particular property, but based on what they've told me, I know they're not going to like it. So being very interactive, being very personal, taking a personal interest, doing a very consultative type sell, that's what differentiates me. Plus, I do the extra things, like, unlike an online booking engine, I don't just email you your travel documents. I take the time to put them in a nice envelope, a nice little bag. I have some swag that has my name on it, of course, and I mail that. And it's nice because I get a package in the mail. There's a handwritten letter. There are little things that you can do that make people feel special, because we're selling an experience. And I have to believe in your industry, it's not just chiropractic care. There's an experience involved with going somewhere. And when we spend our money, we're not just buying something, we're buying an experience. So that's what I try to give as an entire experience from start to finish.
I have to tell you, I could not agree more. In fact, that's almost word for word a part of our mission statement in our practices, and that is that we want to create a superior end-to-end patient experience from the moment the person walks into the door to the moment they are released from our care. We want that to be superior and personal in every way, and we approach it with custom-tailored care plans for each individual, not a cookie-cutter idea. And you get some folks that, hey, they're in a hurry, they don't have time, they don't want to talk too much, they really just want you to lay down and crack their back, so to speak. And you get other folks who really need the one-on-one interaction, and there's more going on there. And sometimes, as a care provider, we'll ask a question and tap into maybe something deeper, a personal pain that we didn't realize was there. We were asking about their physical pain, but we do take the time to give the solution to that person. It's going to be different from the other person. And so I wholeheartedly agree. That personal touch, that going the extra mile, is something that I think in the service industry really helps to differentiate yourself, and cannot, especially in an age of automation, that personal touch really makes you stand out.
It really does. It 100% does. And taking that extra time to do that, because, in sales and even in chiropractic, you're in sales. You're selling yourself. What that we need to understand is people aren't buying chiropractic. They're buying you. They're not going to buy a trip. First, they've got to buy me. And that's where I always start, is I'm selling me. Anybody can take an order on a vacation, but I need to sell me and my services and make myself seem invaluable.
Let me ask you this. What advice would you give someone who's just starting out? So take yourself back to 2003 when you were first starting out. You didn't know a whole lot. What advice would you give that younger version of yourself?
Wow, that is a really great question. And I think the advice I would give myself is patience. And don't be afraid to step outside of the box and try something new. And don't be afraid to throw some money into something, because you're going to fail at something. It's going to happen. So expect failures, but don't let that take you down. Take your failure as a, stupid tax sometimes, and then grow from that. And never give up, and just keep focused. I would have told myself, and I'm glad that I did this, but to stay focused on the end goal, stay focused on my mission. My mission is to sell honeymoons and destination weddings. That's what I'm going to grow. And I really never veered from that in 13 years, and I think that's been a blessing, because there were a lot of opportunities to veer. So pick your path, stay true to it. Obviously, if things go really wrong or it doesn't work, you have to rethink things. But I think, I would have told myself, be patient, have that clear path, and move forward on it.
Absolutely. And begin with the end in mind, as Stephen Covey famously said in the 7 Habits of Highly Successful People. I think that's summarizing a little bit of what you said there.
It is. And, I have to tell you, it's kind of funny, because one of my goals, now that I think back about it, was, I wanted to be a stay-home mom, which is what I was able to do. And number 2, in starting this, it was my goal that my husband would be able to join my company full time, and we would be able to work and travel together. And as of January 1st this past year, that happened. We achieved that goal.
That is fantastic. Congratulations to you both.
Thank you. Yes, it was. And, to see that goal come to reality has been wow. It's been a wow moment.
Well, that is fantastic. If you ever need someone to accompany you on those trips, let me know.
You and everybody else on Facebook want to work.
Well, what were some of the initial challenges you had when you were growing your business, and maybe times were not, things were not going as well as they are today? How did you overcome those challenges?
A lot of it was, and I'm sure you experience this as well in your business, building my core base of clients and kind of getting that pipeline going were some really lean times financially. And part of what I had to do was I took a little part-time job. I picked up little jobs here and there. When I had spare time, just doing other things to keep my income going, because this was my goal. This was my dream. And you don't come out of the chutes making a ton of money. So being able to kind of stick that out, beans and rice, rice and beans, as far as food goes, and just really knowing that if I stick with this thing is going to end up great if I stay focused. That was a big obstacle, because there were times when it's like, oh my gosh, I worked for 50 hours this week and I made $200. But what I was doing, I was laying the groundwork for a future. And that's what you have to see it in. It's kind of a front-loaded work, end-load success. And that's what we have to see, is you've got to put a lot of work in the front end. You don't get paid for it, but on the back end, that's when you reap the rewards.
We saw a very similar thing when we started our practice back in 2009. And there were days you're working late and there's not much money coming in. And absolutely, we knew what we were working for. We knew that we were doing what we called rainmaker days, where if we did this work today, we're going to reap the rewards of that down the line. And we absolutely did. So I can very much identify with what you're talking about.
I like that, rainmaker days. I absolutely could not agree more.
Well, let me ask you this. Did you ever plateau at any point along the way, once you got going? I know that we certainly do. We will end up having a slow month or a slow week from time to time. Has that ever happened to you? It sounds like it might be a seasonal business with am I getting that right, with weddings and destination travel?
Yes, for many years there was, I knew come, January to March, I probably wasn't going to have a paycheck because I didn't really have people traveling over the holidays. So there were times like that. There were and then usually in like July, I would get a little bit of free time because I didn't have a lot of people traveling in the fall. Now as my business has grown and continues to grow, I don't have any downtime. There's not a slow time.
You
ever.
wish you had downtime.
Well, you know what? It's, what is it? Hashtag first world problems. I'm so busy and successful that I don't have time. I can't complain about that. I really can't. So, work hard, play hard, and focus. But that, yes, in the beginning there were definitely times, but again, here I am 13 years down the road and it's all paying off. And you just have to gut it out.
Was there anything in particular you did when you were plateauing to jumpstart it, or did you just continue doing what you always did and then eventually the day came when things took off again?
No, I was always thinking outside of the box, always looking for ways to promote myself. I got my car wrapped like a resort, with my phone number on the back of it. I sought out opportunities to, be interviewed on television, and that's what turned into what is now my Better Kansas City show every Wednesday. And it's thinking outside of the box during those times. Those down times actually ended up being blessings because that's when I really had to stop and think and go, how am I going to grow this? So again, that's where you kind of have to find your downtime may seem like, wow, this is bad. But no, that's your time to really go dig in and how am I going to grow this? And those downtimes are probably what created some of my best ideas and my best moving forward.
Wow, that is so powerful. Mojo Nation, I cannot stress enough the value of what she is talking about. When our practice gets really busy and then goes into a lull or a downtime, I find it rejuvenating. I do exactly what Jackie's talking about. I refocus. I redouble my efforts. I look at maybe a stone which I have left unturned and go down that path and really start stoking the fire and see what comes from that. That is fantastic advice.
Thank you. Yeah, it really is. It's true. And that's why I say stay focused. Go towards your goal. Use those downtimes. That's someone telling you, you haven't turned over every stone, just like you said. And so really, you've just got to grasp everything. You've got to punch through, just work hard and know that you have it in you to be successful and do whatever it is you want to do.
So Jackie, you've got 22 employees and you're in 11 states. As a chiropractor, we have 2 practices and we have 2 or 3 employees, I think maybe 4. So managing them is a little bit different than managing 22 people. But what do you do to keep the people that work for you motivated?
Well, we do, we have a couple things. Number one, we get together once a year regardless, and we call it our blissful retreat. And we all meet somewhere and we get together. For us, we're lucky. It's usually in the Caribbean. But we get together, we idea share. We work with some experts in our field, so we get training, whether it be on a particular property, whether it be, with one of our suppliers and their new booking engine. We get together and do that. Plus, I always schedule a fun activity of team building together. So we go and do some fun activity. And then one time we had, I had everybody to my room and I said, wear your PJs. And we had a PJ marketing meeting. It's just keeping things light and interesting and fun. I will tell you another thing I take is that I tell everybody on my team, I'm not your boss, because that's just not how I want to be seen. You work with me. We are a team. I happen to be the team captain. And because I don't want anybody to feel any less important in growing their own business, because technically that's what they're doing. I'm encouraging them to grow their own business, grow their own, grow their income. So I want them to know I'm a teammate. And so that's really, really important. The other thing that we do is we have a private Facebook page. That's a place where we can go in, and I bet you there's 30 posts a day from all over saying, hey guys, I have a question about this, or I want to try this marketing thing, or hey, I have a question about, how this works. And always 4 to 5 responses within 10 to 15 minutes. So we're a family. We've created a family. And that's super important.
I like that answer. I've found that the best employee has really been someone who feels like they are making a contribution beyond just being an employee, and that it's really a partnership environment, and that the motivation comes from within rather than external from someone who's in a more traditional, I guess, boss-employee type relationship. So that absolutely resonates with me, what you're saying.
Yeah.
And Mojo Nation, if it's not in the cards to send your staff to the Caribbean this year, maybe you can work with Jackie next year and we can make that happen.
That's right. We'll show you how it's done.
Well, let me ask you this. Is there any special process you use when screening applicants to hire? We've had a number of employees with us, and in other careers I've done interviews, and honestly, you don't know much about the person really until they do work for you, and oftentimes that can present problems, sometimes not. Is there anything you do in particular to make sure you get the kind of person you want on your team?
Yeah, so a lot of it is just talking to the person and finding out what they're all about, and you can really learn a lot in just by listening, and that's really key, is just listening to what someone has to say. You can get a feel for whether or not you're going to jive with them. Another thing is, for me, is being in this industry, it's a big but small industry. So I can talk to other people, especially if this is someone that's been in the travel industry before, and I'll say, hey, did you ever hear of this agent, and how was she, and what did you think? And I can usually get some pretty honest feedback that way. And then a lot of it is, the other nice thing is that a lot of the people that come to me are referrals from other agents that are like, hey, Jackie, I've worked with Jackie and she's great, and why don't you give her a call and see if she wants to take you on? So a lot of it's networking, really networking and getting to know a lot of people in your industry, because somebody's going to know somebody, and I'm sure it's the same in the chiropractic field. Somebody's going to know somebody, and you can get a real good idea of who you're working with.
That's great advice. Like a lot of things, referrals, whether they're patients, customers, clients, or employees, if they're coming from a known trusted source, some of that vetting has already been done ahead of time.
Yeah, absolutely. That's so important. Just like our clients love a good referral, we need one too when bringing new people into our family.
I want to switch gears for a second and ask you another question. In our business, we sometimes have patients who are not able to help, we're not on the same page with, we don't get along with them, and there is maybe a personality conflict. These are rare, but in some instances, it just is not the right fit, doctor to patient. In your business, have you ever had a client where it's not worked out, maybe for lack of a better word, you've had to fire the client?
That was exactly what I was going to use. And, sometimes there's just not enough money to be made to make up for what you're going to deal with. And when the red flags go up, you need to find a way to say very politely, I think we maybe need to part friends, is the way I use it. I don't think I'm going to be able to give you the type of service, the type of attention that you're looking for. And as opposed to disappointing you, I think it's best that we part friends. And I have done that on more than one occasion, because if you stick it out with because I have stuck it out with that particular client before, and it ended up exactly the way I knew it was going to. And that was not good. And we all know one unhappy person, especially the person that you can never make happy, is the one that will get online and rant and rave to everybody about how awful you were, and it's just not worth it. So don't be afraid to protect yourself and say, I think we would be better off not working together.
I agree. I've had a similar situation with patients, and I'll never forget, there was a time I was watching a band that I really liked, and the band was opening for another band, and the crowd really wasn't there to see the opener, but I was there to see the opener. And there was a handful of folks that really were into the opening band, including myself, and a whole lot of angry people just sort of yelling things and throwing things occasionally on the stage. And afterwards, I spoke to the band, and I said, how can you stand there and play to an angry crowd? And the band leader said, we just give our love to the people who love us. We're playing to the people who are right there, who are appreciating what we're doing and are there to see us. And we sort of filter the rest out because we know that we are focusing on the right things. And I was amazed with the parallel between that and anyone who is in business. Focus on the people who love what you're doing, that you're taking care of, that appreciate what you're providing to them. And I absolutely agree. When you know in your heart how it's going to go, I can't think of a single time where it ever didn't go that way. It almost always does. Mm-hmm. And you're better off identifying that early and helping that person move on to maybe someone who's a better fit.
Absolutely. And really and truly, it's kind of like you said, it's really loving yourself enough, because we're human too. We're not just business people. It's loving yourself enough to say, I'm not going to put myself through that. I'm not. So there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with just saying, like you said, I'm just going to love the people that love me, and I'm not touching that with a 10-foot pole.
Universal and rock bands, chiropractors, and travel agencies.
Yes. There's all kinds out there. John Q. Public can be one of the ugliest people on planet Earth.
Well, I want to thank you for your time. We're getting close to the end of the interview. I have a few more questions I want to ask you. These are questions we ask all of our guests.
All right.
Do you have a favorite quote about success? This can be in business, life, or anything in general.
I do. Find what you love to do. Find a way to make money doing it, and you will never work a day in your life.
That is great advice. And
I tell my kids that all the time.
What's the single most important recommendation you have for someone looking to start their business now or maybe improve one they already have?
I think it is to focus on a niche, and focus on something that you love to do, that you're really good at or you really enjoy. Become fantastic at that. Cast a smaller net. And I think that focus will reward you tenfold.
What single book would you recommend for an entrepreneur?
Oh, golly, that's a tough question. It's been such a long time since I've read one, Rich.
That's okay.
I could come up with one, because I've read some. Right now, the one that comes to mind is The Art of the Deal, just because Donald Trump is front of mind right now. But there are so many little tidbits and snippets that I've read. Really get your hands on any sales books. Really are great. But I prefer going to as opposed to reading a class. I like to go to opposed to reading a book, I like to go to a class. I like to enroll in a class. And there are all sorts of wonderful entrepreneurial and sales classes out there that you can take, even at your local junior college. And that over a book at any point, because that's a great way to that's a great way to network and meet other people with the same goals as you and bounce your ideas off of people. So in lieu of a book, check your local community college for some entrepreneurial classes.
That is a great idea. Even more interactive than reading or listening to an audiobook. Get live with another person.
That's right. So I just totally blew the book thing out of the water, but I can recommend a couple really great stories, but yeah.
Well, it was a great answer. So we appreciate it nonetheless. Well, what's the best way for people to reach you if they want to get in touch with you, Jackie?
Well, the best way is via my website, which is blissfulhoneymoons.com. They can also call me or really email me is usually the best way, and it's Jackie, which is Jackie, at blissfulhoneymoons.com, and that's blissful with two S's, BLISSFUL, the word honeymoons with an S on the end.com. And I'm really good about returning emails.
Jackie, I want to thank you so much for your time today. It's been a pleasure talking to you. You've given some great nuggets of advice out there for our listeners in Mojo Nation. Best of luck to you and future success in all of your endeavors. And thank you so much for being a part of our show.
It was my pleasure, and best of luck to everybody out there. And it was a pleasure sharing some of my little nuggets.
Thank you for listening to the Chiro Business Mojo podcast. For links to what was discussed in today's episode, check out the show notes at chirobusinessmojo.com. And be sure to jump on over to iTunes and leave us a 5-star review if you liked what you heard. We'll see you next time.